Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I am streaming live with one of my favorite people on the face of the planet Earth, Cameron.
That's a lot of people. I'm so honored.
Yeah, the billions and billions.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm so looking forward to sharing a conversation with you. It feels like forever, but also like we were just talking not too long ago. So this is going to be great. It's been a whirlwind year. 2019 is going so fast. So fast. Today was no exception.
2019 has been a trip.
Yes.
You know,
yes, it has.
I'm going to my Bow Wow Bill page now, and if you guys haven't seen the previous live stream that I did with Cameron, check that out in the vaults there, in the videos on the Bow Wow Bill page. And I'm going to stream this. She is the Hope 2 Canine Foundation founder and president, and I'm going to make sure we're streaming live. Oh, I see us right there, and I hear a little feedback. Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
It comes
and goes.
Hopefully
it resolves.
Yeah. So, Cameron, do you want to do a quick intro on who you are and what you do while I share this on a couple of groups,
Sure. You know, it's funny because I was just interviewed on the radio station not too long ago, and I basically was explaining that not only am I the founder and the president of the organization, but I basically am the, chief fire putter outer. That was like kind of a shitty thing to have roll out of your mouth, but it was very honest. And it's still very true and very real, in this moment, because already today, I'm supposed to be off this week. That's a joke. But, already today, there have been a few scenarios where I was on calls with people supporting them in crisis unexpectedly, or, I spent several hours at the vet with one of my teammates' dogs because they were out for the day and I was looking after her and something's very wrong. And so that really is what I do. That's my role. I'm a huge, supporter and pillar of not just dogs through my organization, but mostly people. And there really isn't a title for that. You can put all kinds of fancy terms around it: executive director, administrator, manager, dog trainer doesn't even come close to cutting what the job position is. And, really what I think I do is I'm a process coach, because outside of my time supporting the organization and having conversations around human behavior and how it relates to our efforts in animal welfare, I work with people in a private coaching capacity to, help them to improve their process. And that means improve how they deal with their baggage, improve how they deal with their trauma, their stuff that they're walking through life with, improve their clarity of vision for what it is that they're supposed to be doing with their life and how to get busy doing it. And that's where my passion really is. And it's been kind of an amazing journey these last 7 to 10 years, how working with dogs, working with animals has evolved me into this space. And sometimes it is hard to explain what exactly do. I wonder if people, in my personal community that I haven't, maybe that I know virtually more than I've met in person, do they really understand what I do? Because I wear a few different hats. But I think process coach is really, the most apropos way to say it. It's something that my boyfriend coined a while back, and it's pretty accurate. So whether you're having process issues with your dog or your kid or your spouse or your health, I can usually have a strong opinion about how to straighten that shit out. That's pretty much what I do.
Who was it? Zig Ziglar. I remember him saying, life is like a tire, and you gotta slice that tire like a pie, and each piece of the pie represents different aspects of your life, from your health to your relationship to your financial, your wealth, and all this stuff, and time for yourself. And he said that if any of those is empty, guess what? You got a flat tire, and guess where you're going with the flat tire?
Yeah, nowhere fast. Yeah, limited miles. You get limited miles on that flat tire. It's 100% a fantastic mental picture for people to have. Any type of pie that you can visually slice and realize that serving out the pieces of yourself to others results in crumbs left on the platter at best, is an appropriate visual, I think, for where we can get more ahead of how we prioritize our lives and how we take responsibility for what it is that we're here to do and how we accomplish that goal. And It confounds a lot of people because we all typically come from bad process. We all typically come from broken people who, were doing the best they could with what they had. And when you learn from brokenness, you have brokenness, and now you got to stand up and take, the time to figure it out. But I think the thing that most people who are trying to avoid burnout struggle with the most is slowing down. People who are feeling overwhelmed and struggling with, having too much on their plate, the last thing they want to do, you tell them, slow down, take the day off, I'll cover for you. No, I can't do that. Are you crazy? The last thing they want to do is slow down. But there is an incredibly important lesson to be learned about the importance of slowing down to speed up. And it's extremely powerful when you get that, when you really finally get it, and you can harness that in terms of the process of it and the mechanisms at work day by day. You can go a lot further with a lot more joy, a lot more ease, and a lot more support. There's a huge component of support that shifts there as well. You're supportable.
Joy, ease, I like those, and fulfillment, and the thing is that what people don't realize, because I think a lot of times when they get into the dog world, or when they're an entrepreneur or taking on tasks for themselves, especially in the dog world is very cool in the fact that it's like the ultimate, I don't know, it reaches into all categories of life. I've had clients that, I love it because it's allowed me so many wonderful experiences. But because it's based in the emotional arena, just, and that's it, is that once you hop on those emotional hot buttons, then you become part of the family.
The emotionality of it is, I think, key. That dogs are catalysts. They're catalysts like children are, like marriages are, like health crises are, like your house burning down or losing your job. A dog can become a catalyst. They can become a catalyst for feeling immense joy and immense sorrow, and everything in between. And so I think the thing that those of us that are in the training industry or healthy strategic rescue work, that we're so drawn to time and again, in spite of the amount of work and drain and even pain that can be involved in leadership in that realm, is that we see this beautiful opportunity and invitation that dogs represent for people to grow and stretch and expand their capacity to love, to do hard work, to face hard things. The list is long, of course, but I think,
live in the moment,
be present. Absolutely. Just let go. Like all kinds of things are present in there, right? It could be the fact of let go of expectations, what you thought things were going to be, allow the picture of what's in front of you and for you to just, guide you and give you some lessons and some growth and opportunity, and, to travel a different path than you might have been thinking you needed to be on. And all kinds of opportunities exist there in that relationship of how much of a catalyst our dogs can be. And, but it comes with a lot of challenges as well, because human behavior dictates that we don't like to work that hard, and we tend to fight and argue with the laws of the universe, and to negotiate with grief, and to negotiate with hard work. And we oftentimes don't see the invitation as such a beautiful thing right away. It can take a really long time for some of us to let it become clear and accepted and, embraced, and something that we work with instead of against. So it's not an easy space to hang out, coaching people on the basis of whatever the catalyst is. I have friends who are in the therapy realm who work with teens in crisis. I have, friends who work in all kinds of different fields, dealing with people who are going through, like adoption agency. One of my friends is involved in placements and seeing children given up for adoption. These catalyst moments, these intersections of, do I want this? Am I willing to work for this? Do I believe in this? Is this a value of mine? These are huge intersections of life where we can get pretty ugly, and we can also have, see some of the most phenomenal beauty of what humanity is capable of. So it's definitely a yin and yang kind of thing, being in this space for sure. And I know that experience walking through life with clients after so many years too, and being able to see some of them on on a next generation of dog, right? And work together for a long time with that arc of their own growth.
Well, and they're experiencing it with my next generation too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like I'm practicing it as well. And speaking of next generation, man, I got to tell people about this. So Cameron, I just had a dream about Cameron one night. It was such a trip. I'm like walking on a hike. Okay. I'm walking with my dogs. And then I notice that there's a person with a dog up in this little alcove. And so I'm kind of getting on my dogs and I walk by and I look and it's Cameron and she's playing with her dog that just passed on. Mm-hmm. And you looked at me and I was like, no way. Hey, Cameron, what's up? And you ran to your dog and you grabbed his face and you hug it right next to yours. And you're like, can you believe it? And I was just like taken back. It was so beautiful. And I had to let you know. And so what happened when I just messaged you, I'm like, hey, I just had this dream about you. And what were you doing?
God, what was I doing? I was on my way. I was in the car still. I hadn't arrived yet. Lori Rose, if Lori watches this, I was on my way to Lori Rose Hill Boxers. And, so Boz, who was in the dream, Boz had passed away maybe a month prior, maybe 2, I don't know at this point. And then I'm on my way to Rose Hill Boxers because I had started talking to Lori Rose about what I was looking for in a pup. And I thought for sure I would be waiting at least a year because as somebody who follows reputable breeders and who really appreciates the intention and the attention that goes into breeding for genetics and temperament and being selective about your placements and all these beautiful things that can happen with reputable and responsible breeding, I assumed I'd be waiting because this is just a PSA for anybody who's watching, who's thinking, I want to go get a puppy. I got to get my 2 cents in here. Getting a dog off of Craigslist or pulling a dog from a box out in front of the grocery store, that is not a reputable breeder. And that is also not a rescue. You don't get to walk through life saying, I rescued him, nor do you get to say, I got him from a breeder. If you didn't go to the home, meet the parents, and see the puppies in the environment, at a minimum, you are not working with a reputable breeder. Beyond that, we're talking what kind of health testing has been done for these parents, what kind of genetic assessments so that we can have a great temperament, we can have a long-lived, healthy, sound dog that can fulfill its purpose, right? What are these dogs genetically designed to do? Can they do that job in a healthy, safe, fulfilling way? We've got to look at health and nutrition of what's going into those puppies from day one. And then their exposure, their whelping process. Does that breeder have intention around experiences for that puppy to a ridiculous degree right when they come out of the womb and until they go home with the buyer? And there are very few reputable breeders out there, to be honest with you. It's hard to find. Yeah. So I had found Lori and I wanted to meet her boxers, and she had a recent litter, and I thought I'd be waiting, however, for at least a year once settling on somebody. And I was wrong because she had a litter. She had a little male pup who was a brindle pup. And I had already said it has to be a brindle, it has to be a male, and it has to temperament test with a majority of 5s and 4s. Okay. Hey, Ryan. So I've already set in my mind this perspective. And if you guys aren't familiar with the temperament test, we should link that for you later because I'm really big on that.
Do you have one on our site or when you recommend it?
The Volhard puppy test is the most common one that I would use, and it's very, very user-friendly to give to the lay person to review. So my puppy had to qualify behaviorally already at 8 weeks of age, and he was being sourced from a person that I was trusted and respected to have looked at those elements I previously mentioned, right? So I figured I'll be waiting. Brindle, male, this, numbers have to come out, blah, blah, blah. So I'm on my way to meet this pup, though, that Lori says, well, he was a show quality potential, but, I told her what I do for a living, and she was like, for someone like yourself, we'd be honored to have him go to your home as a pet dog. Because I said, I'm not going to show, and I don't want my dog's ears cropped. These were some things that were nuances of the, dynamic, the arrangement. So I said, I am definitely stuck on a pet quality dog, but I do all this stuff in my life, protection work, agility, you name it. The dog's going to have an amazing life. So I head out that direction because she says, all right, well, he was a show prospect, but we'd be willing to let you, meet him. And regardless, I wanted to meet her adult dogs, the other dogs in her program. So this is when Bill messaged me, I was on my way to meet this pup. And I had my trainer Kai with me, and she was going to do the temperament test because I said, I'm not touching the dog unless he passes test. I will not even meet him. This is how crucial it is to understand, guys, how emotional we are when it comes to animals, and how easy it is, even for somebody who has a plan and a process and who sees dogs all the time. I still know impulsively, you hold a boxer puppy, you're going to walk away from it. I mean, come on. So I had said, don't hand me the dog. I'm not meeting the dog. I will stand as an observer, outside the space when he gets temperament tested and I can do the scoring. I'm not touching him. I will not consider the dog unless this, and this. Well, he did test out, of course, because he's now here. He's mine. He's amazing. But I was headed to do this and to meet this pup when you contacted me about the dream, and the dream was a blessing. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. It was Bosley's blessing. It was a blessing.
Why do you come through me, man? That's it's just such
no idea. Other than that, I know you, and I know your intention, and I know the alignment of respect for what it means to pursue connection with your intuition, what it means to pursue the ability to be still within yourself, the willingness to do the work that we do with a level of spirituality and integrity that is not easy. And I have to figure that, the sheer fact of, I would know, coming from you, I would know it was Boz, first of all, because how utterly random. Yeah, totally. And because, your ability to relay the details that you did were unique to the information I needed to hear from him, that he was good, that he was okay. And even now I'll get emotional about it because he was one of those dogs. He was one of those dogs for me that I can't believe I lost him when I did. I was absolutely nowhere on my radar. He was a thriving, healthy 5.5-year-old dog. And, it kills me to this day because I had a 3-pack and he was my best dog. And I was a little bit bitter for a little while. Like, I lost the best one. I lost the one I could do anything with, who, was my partner in crime. But he was so ready. He was so ready. He absolutely told me the end was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had of letting go of a dog. He was so ready, and I truly and 100% believe he came back in the form of this Laszlo. There's just certain things about Laz that are Boz, so we just call him Boslo.
Wow. I had a feeling that might have happened too. That was my intuition too, is that he's kind of coming back.
Pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. He's in there for sure. Everybody sees it. Everybody believes it. And it's very special that he sort of took notes on what I wanted to tweak about our dynamic. And then he came back and was like, well, here you go. Now I do these things and these things, but I'm also extremely familiar with, where I sit and how I position myself in this particular nook in the living room. And like, this is my favorite way and spot to lay on the bed. And it's just very eerie, that whole like upper realm of spirituality and your connection to dogs. Very eerie.
Yeah. Well, I had to tell you too. I was just like, man, you got to tell her. I remember driving and just be like, no, you got to message her right now and just let her know that, I dream about her and her dog.
I had a dream about you. Yeah. It was amazing. I really appreciated that you told me about that because it was very special, and it was really just the sweet full circle moment of, go ahead and move forward. And
I remember
so after that loss.
I remember when during the dream too, I was like, okay, see ya. And I moved on with my dogs, and I was just like, wow, how frickin' cool. And in my dream, I knew that Boz was passed. Yeah. And I knew like everything. And so, weird. Yeah, what a trip.
So crazy.
Well, and you said that, what were you saying about how it just broke your heart?
Yeah, losing that dog broke my heart. My heart was hurting bad. And not only was it just an awful loss, but I had to say goodbye the day before I flew to Australia, and had a 2-week international trip that involved work, and doing a presentation, which, apologies again to anyone who is hearing for the first time. I've said this live online before, but that was not even remotely my best work. Presenting at that event was brutally difficult, and being on that trip was really challenging. And when I came home, it just, the wave of grief that rocked me. I pulling in the driveway, the wave of grief was unbelievable. So bringing Laszlo home, it was pretty amazing that, like, the minute we got in the car to drive home, I started to heal in a way that I hadn't had a chance to do yet. And I have every day since felt, just this incredible gratitude for my experience with my heart dog, Bosley, and like a complete and utter moving forward in every way. No stuckness, no nothing. The grief cloud lifted like massively just by allowing that newness, and trusting that process. And like I said, I do think Boz is in there. So it was very like, welcome back. Yeah. But the not being able to grieve it before, and to get on a plane and go on this trip and be, so upside down out of your environment, and just with so many people. I traveled with 5 or 6 women. I struggled a lot with this one because of what he represented for me, and not being able to sit with it and really move through it right after it happened. So it was all that.
And I think that that's a unique situation that he's back, and I think that too. But I don't think that people realize, and myself included, the effect that grief has upon you, as far as a ripple effect to other aspects of your life. And and I like how you said a grief cloud, because that's just basically what it feels like. It's like a fog that kind of that just comes over every aspect from your work to your relationships to.
It has different forms too. I mean, there's that, but I've also had the experience, and I know others too, where it just hits you like a ton of bricks. There's nothing cloudy about it. It's like, it's a freaking whomp upside the head. It happened to me, I don't know, maybe a month ago. My friend Mary will probably remember, because I think I texted her right as it happened. I pulled over on the side of the road because I was sobbing so hysterically out of the blue. I'd seen a movie, I'd gone to a movie, and I was on my way home, and bam. And, we were talking about burnout and overwhelm, and some of the risks of that, and how do we formulate good process to avoid it. And this whole thing about grief is like a big one, that not respecting the grief process, not being aware and conscious that you're grieving, is exhausting. It is a surefire way to end up in burnout. It is a surefire way to experience overwhelm and exhaustion, especially, in a way that confounds a lot of people. I don't understand why I'm so emotional, or I'm so stressed out. I have a client right now going through divorce, and I know she was completely confounded for a while about why she was feeling a lot of the things she was feeling day to day and trying to run her company. And as soon as I was able to turn the light on about the grief thing that was going on, it was like, oh my God, yeah. I mean, just, she could connect the dots and give herself, the space to do what she needed to do to respect that. A lot of us are on autopilot, that thing that we were talking about before, where you don't want to slow down because you think that's going to make it worse. But what you really need to do is slow down and make space to move through grief. You got to allow yourself that space. It's just, you can't avoid it, forever. You might be able to numb it for a moment, but you won't avoid it forever. And that is definitely one of those things that surprises a lot of people and creates a lot of frustration for them if they're not aware they're grieving, or they don't respect the grief process as something that is a massive drain.
A massive energy drain. And not only that, but I mean, just like you said, it comes at you like a ton of bricks. You know what, for example, for me, for my dad, losing my dad, and I lost him in January. You know, and I knew that it was coming because he was sick, but even when he's gone, it's just totally different. And I think for a man losing his father, I'm finding out that it's one of the biggest challenges, and kind of reminds you of your own mortality, and kind of pushes you. And it's done that with me, especially creatively. I've really put my grief and transformed it into art, and taken my broken heart and making it into art with glass, and honoring my father. My father was an artist as well.
It's fantastic.
But and then losing my dog, I lost my heart dog Cedar a month later this year. And I remember I was looking at a chili dog at Sonic. Sonic is a fast food company here, and I just saw a chili dog, and I remember just hitting me like a ton of bricks that when I was with my father last time, he wanted to go have a chili dog, and I was just like, no, Dad, you can't. We got to eat healthy. You know, that thing is so horrible for you. And chili dogs have a different meaning to me. I went in and had one in his honor, you know, just to, but it's just so weird, you know, just the things that change.
Yeah. Yep. Totally get that. And I think that, you know, the process, the journey of learning to see those signals and those signs that you're about to walk through another layer, another level, are really a part of taking leadership in your life. They're a part of taking ownership and responsibility for yourself, and not expecting that other people are going to be able to read that for you, or that external, you know, resources are going to take that discomfort away for you. There is 100%, I think, a need to just accept that it is yours to own and process through and walk through, and that it's a part of the honor of having loved something and had it, you know, the positive impact of it in your life. And we have all of these shitty shortcuts, you know, in our behavior where we want to pursue pleasure and avoid pain. It's the same dynamic we're constantly talking with our clients about with regard to dog motivation. Dogs are pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain. They're going to do what works. They're opportunistic. They want the shortest route home. They want to keep having fun. They want to play. They want to eat. You know, we're not dissimilar. We're animals too. And our dynamic of wanting to constantly be in a state of happy is really problematic for us on many levels, but particularly when it comes to grieving, when it comes to the grief that's around facing the reality of where you're at, like who you are and your limitations. I had a grief experience a few weeks ago when I had a complete and total meltdown because I was stressed on a level I wasn't paying attention to, and I took it out on somebody I care about. And that confrontation involved grieving. Like, I saw my mother in that moment come out in me. I saw things I didn't like about my patterning, my habits, and the history of kind of where I come from and what I'm made of at the core, and that I haven't all this work and all this knowledge, and still there's that in you, you know? It was a grief moment of like, wow, Cam, that was really ugly. And, you know, you don't get stuck there, right? Like, don't get stuck there. Just fucking own it and do the work to get deeper down. Another layer. Another client I was talking to today, she was just saying, I've been in therapy for all these years and I've been doing all this work. We've actually not worked together, but she and I were talking about the programs that I do today. And she's like, all this effort, all this work. And I thought I had my head around, and I'm like, you didn't, you don't. None of us do. We're never done. We have to just keep going, you know? And grief is kind of one of those things. It's like fear or anything else. It's in the back seat. It gets to ride with you. It just don't let it drive, you know? Be aware that it's going to be in the back seat. It's going to come along for the journey at times. Just don't let the bitch drive. Don't let it tell you where you're going, you know?
Well, and moments that it hits you with a ton of bricks, feel it, you know, and let it and process it, you know, and that's and talk about it. You know, that's what I've learned is, you know, especially for men, you know, especially for us, we're taught to just kind of push it down. And I've gotten lonely because of it, and there's different types of loneliness. You know, there's a loneliness that, you know, I feel out here, and we talked about this with Sherry Boyer. who's a wonderful person and on a live stream. But there's a loneliness that I feel out here being out in the country, which is by design. I want to be out here, you know, that's not, I want to be anywhere else. But there's that loneliness that you feel when you're surrounded by people, and sometimes people that love you and you love, and you're not feel understood or connected or you know. And so but I found a way to alleviate that is to talk and to be like, look, I don't feel like I'm connected. I don't, and for especially for guys, it's very foreign for us, and I'm working on it. You know?
Good for you. 100%. I endorse that message as well. I think that's really powerful. And you know, and a big piece of that, because a lot of people will say, well, what does that really look like? What does that really mean? Like, talk about it. Okay, yeah, sure. So I'm grieving. But I think, you know, going into specifics is really valuable. What does talking about it actually mean? Often eludes people, and it's not, you know, or they diminish the necessity of it because they can say the thing happened, but their struggle is around articulating how it affected them, or whether they felt they had closure, or what will they miss. Like, it can involve all of that, right? And I think that's important for people to understand. But something that you were saying just then struck me metaphorically around the dog thing, just to make sure we do talk a little bit of dog here. And that is that, you know, our dogs experience a significant amount of loneliness, so to speak, as well, in being disconnected. And if we have a few people, maybe one person even, who listens in on the conversation and goes, yeah, that's me, I get it, I feel that way. Imagine your dog who is unfulfilled, who doesn't get connection in their own language with their own kind, or in their dynamic with a healthy leader. Imagine that experience of that perpetual loneliness and loss of fulfillment in whatever their, you know, nuanced emotional capacity is, whether they were well socialized or not, whether they have anxiety or insecurity, or they're a strong, confident, hardy, outgoing dog. There is this kind of chronic challenge that as trainers we're up against, where owners want us to train out behavioral challenges that have come from a dog that is lonely. It's unfulfilled, right? It's disconnected. It doesn't feel seen and supported. And so if there's some level in which we can get people to really understand that, how critical that is for ourselves, we can really have a little bit more empathy, I think, in taking responsibility for the impact of that in our dogs' lives as well. And it's quality over quantity. Like, that's the funny thing about it, right? Quality conversation around your grief, and having somebody who doesn't just try to fix it, but who says, yeah, that's really hard. And, you know, it hurts. It hurts. That's really hard, is far more valuable than people who are dismissive, you know, oh, well, you know, yeah, that's life. You live, you die, you'll get over it. You know, you should really stop focusing on it. Like any of these sorts, or telling their own story to you, right? Like, that's a common challenge of people who aren't supportive in grief in a really healthy way, is, oh yeah, I lost my dad too. And then blah, blah, it becomes about them. You know, that quality connection, that quality understanding and presence is much more important than the quantity. And so I would just emphasize for people that the same is true with our dogs. The quality time that we spend seeing them, and really, really seeing them and being in it with them and being present with them, is so important in creating that sense of peace and balance, if in the way that we need it for ourselves as well, with our own kind.
Well, and I think seeing it as a professional, like you said, the unfulfillment in the dogs and the loneliness in the dogs. And I often tell people, you know what, a good way to see if a dog owner is connected, watch how much this dog looks at the person when they're out walking or something like that. And it blows people's mind, because they'll sit and observe and realize that this dog never looks at that person. Never, ever. And I ask, look at how much my dogs and I engage. Look at how we're fulfilled, and the lines of communication are open. And I think that as professionals that have traded our lives for this, there's almost a amount of energy drain that we get from seeing that over and over, and you know, just seeing that emotional dumping ground almost too with the dogs. It's all very one-sided, and you know, it's interesting, the whole dynamic. of the people, and it's an emotional thing. It's all, and that's it. It becomes this emotional. I don't know, this emotional car that goes off into the ditch.
Being in the rescue realm, 100%, I can tell you, that rescue in particular attracts some of the most emotionally depraved people. And rescue, I just said this to somebody earlier today, wow. Rescue is another form of addiction. It's another way in which people try to escape, seeing themselves, sitting with their stuff, feeling their feelings, owning their condition and their life and where they want to go and what they need to do to get there and the mistakes they've made and the pain they've caused. And oh my God, I mean, it becomes another way that people judge and project and put others down because their own worthiness stuff is, a stirring soup of crap under there. And it is absolutely possible to have a dog in your life for all the wrong reasons because you're unwilling to deal with your own stuff, your own baggage, your own wounds. I over and over again find myself saying how we do one thing is how we do everything, because that's the chronic scenario with dogs. If somebody comes to me and they have a reactive dog, I fundamentally understand about behavior that dog is basing its decisions off of the belief that it can or it must react. Yes. Therefore, built on the relationship that is shared with the owner in the house, 80 to 90+% of their time. I then know that we have an owner who is not a strong leader, who does not share healthy boundaries, who does not fulfill the dog and drain energy and create connection. And then I can start talking to that owner very directly about where else in your life do you struggle with boundaries? Where else in your life are you chronically overbooked, running late, saying you don't have time, resentful and pissed off because you feel overlooked or walked on by family members, colleagues, the marriage. I mean, I start rolling through this stuff. This is like 10 minutes in an eval and people are like, what are you looking in my living room window? I was like, no, I understand behavior, and you have like a canary here in the form of a dog telling me the coal mine is about to go up. Wow. And so, we do need to be talking about this as a standard of dog training support for our clients, as a standard of rescue screening for adopters and fosters, because if people are running from their stuff, if they're looking for yet another thing to be a distraction in their life from taking responsibility for where they're at, for who they are, and whether or not they're good with that person they see in the mirror, then we're doing something seriously wrong if we don't confront these issues. The issues of dogs are human issues. They're human behavior problems.
The dogs pay for it with their lives.
They do. And when we get people in front of us who want to be better, who want to grow, who want to have better process, who want to make a positive impact on the planet, who want to feel peaceful, connected, who want to feel, fulfilled in themselves and have a, value in the lives of the people around them. When they want that, they will receive that information, and not only will they start to understand how to respect the dog in front of them, how to step up and be the leader in their own life so they can deal with what's going on in their dog's perception of them. But now we have better colleagues, we have better bosses, we have better partners and lovers, we have better parents, we have better sisters and brothers, we have better neighbors, we have people who aren't dealing with road rage and stealing mail out of the mailbox and getting on drugs. And this is the impact that we can have when we take those connections seriously and we get down to the nitty-gritty of everything we do is connected. Our behavior in one area is the same behavior in every other area. One of the things that I challenge your viewers to consider is just do you coil your garden hose back up after you use it, or do you leave it stretched out on the lawn?
I leave it stretched out on the lawn. It's out on the lawn right now, man.
Because you're leaving stretched out hoses somewhere else too. And the cost of the hose in the yard might not seem that big of a deal, but somewhere else there's a higher cost than you want to be paying. And if you start coiling the hose, you will start doing those other things differently as well. You will start paying attention to the details. You will become a better finisher. you will start raising the bar and having higher standards for yourself. That's what the hose represents. It's like, it needs to be coiled, but why don't we do it? I'm in a rush. I don't want to. It's messy. I resent that somebody else left it that way. It can be a million different things that are going on subconsciously, right? But that same process, that same operating mechanism is following us everywhere we go. And if we don't coil the hose, we don't do the dishes before we go to bed at night. And if we don't do the dishes before we go to bed at night, we wake up in the morning and we see that crap and we believe less for ourselves, right? Or we go and we meet our teams in our businesses and we let behavior slide. We allow these, insidious little things here and there of somebody not doing their performance on the level that they should, not communicating like they should, not taking care of our client like they should, because the hose can be stretched out in the yard for next time. And that's when we start
coil it up right now.
much higher costs, right? I know it's one of those things that just really changed my life to recognize and take responsibility for, that we have to at least own, are we hose coilers or not? Because if you're not starting with ownership of that, you can't move forward with what it will take to change. But it's very fascinating if you start paying attention to when you stop yourself and you fix that stuff, it will change how you do the work in the first place. It will change your standard and the bar for how you allow your space to look. I'm a stickler for things like that because I know that clutter and unfinished irritations and messes and incompletes, they change whether we believe we can take over the world or not. If we can't find our keys, if there's a scratch on the wall terminally that we haven't patched and painted, we will not believe that we can buy that $1 million mansion one day. These things are really strong, impacting subconscious messages. So it is very, very interesting to look at behavior and see that, the person who's coming to me with dog drama, and I'll ask them about their hose, I was like, well, clearly you don't hold your dog accountable to thresholds. Right? Because it's like those little things, you negotiate, you let them go, you don't hold them accountable, you don't think it's that big of a deal, but they're stacking up on you, friend. And now you have a dog who goes when you're on the walk. So
well,
if you
it's easy to see when physical things build up in the physical realm because we have dirty dishes, we have stinky garbage, we have stuff that becomes a very big nuisance. But the energetic realm builds up just like that. Is this a 5-second rule? Is that no?
No, I don't think so. It's been a while since I read her work. I don't think it's Mel's. I don't think it's anything from Mel. I know that Canfield talks about this. I know that, in terms of success principles, it's in there somewhere about messes and incompletes for sure. And I talk a lot about that in my retreat with the gals that attend my retreat and in my online coaching program. Some of these sort of key principles and ingredients for improving your process that play out in the form of, what you tolerate, what you allow in your environment that actually takes from you without your awareness, and the cost of that long term on your ability to be productive and your ability to have a high enough standard for what you'll accept for yourself. Oftentimes those of us that have a lot of these messes, irritations, incompletes, we have lots of relationship dynamics that parallel that, where we're putting up with stuff that we shouldn't be, and we're resentful. And so that toxic soup of burying feelings and not speaking your truth, that's another top 3 ingredient for what will lead you down the path of exhaustion, burnout, and overwhelm. If you don't speak the truth, and always, tell the truth of what you're going through, what you see, what you feel, what you need, what you demand, what your boundaries are, your limitations, your expectations. You're not speaking that stuff out loud, and you're suppressing it, and you're irritated and you're tolerating it and you're putting up with it being messy in relationships in your life. You're cruising towards overwhelm. That's another really surefire way to have your foot on the gas towards overwhelm and burnout.
Well, I'm learning that it's easy, or not easy, not at all, but it's important to discuss this stuff, especially with my friends, and I was out with some guys and I was like, hey guys, sometimes I feel lonely. I would like it if you called me more.
Yeah.
you know, and that to me, it was the hardest thing to say, you know.
Good for you.
But it, you know, unless you say it, it's just going to fester. And a lot of this stuff you got to deal with. And sometimes, you know, the clot or clutter, and it's energetic clutter, it's energetic residue, residual effects that will affect you from making other decisions, and you have to deal with them. And that takes the clutter comes from the root word clot, which is a stagnation of energy. And so when we deal with it, we actually clear that out, and we're inviting new creative energy or more space to deal with the other clots that we have. But I think that, you know, it all boils down to, you said, boundaries, healthy boundaries, and not just setting them, but as I spoke with Sherry Boyer on an earlier podcast or live stream, was enforcing them. You know, not just saying them, but what are you going to do once this boundary is crossed, or how are you going to ensure that people know not to cross this boundary? Do you going to build a Guantanamo-style fence, or are you just doing like easily, you know, fence
traffic cone?
Right?
Please don't cross. A piso miato. It's like,
you know, that's important.
You know, my strategy for that is more if and then, because I watch a lot of people struggle with boundaries. I did for years, which is why I teach on it, right? Because we all teach from our shit. And I'm always like super surprised that this is something that a lot of us never learn. But when you are dealing with this feeling that you're not communicating boundaries clearly enough, or you feel that you have, but somebody is still pushing back on you, you don't have enough if and then. If, here's an example, if you don't stop calling me at midnight, Mom, then this is what's going to happen to you, right? I will change my phone number and not give you my direct line. Then you follow through on it. But I think where it's hard for people is like this idea of follow through on your boundaries, but they don't really know how to set the boundary. They don't really know what the boundary is. And so I love that you said, like, it can't be just this like orange traffic cone. It has to be, you know, here's the very fortified, clearly defined, this is what will happen if you don't respect my boundary. You know, you will lose access to me. You will no longer be motivating me to want to talk to you. You know, when you do this, and if you just, you know, you demonstrate this behavior, you take these actions, it tells me you're not a safe person, or it tells me that I shouldn't trust you. You know, there's a really important skill to be acquired there of communicating if and then. If this doesn't get sent to me in a timely manner, then this is the consequence that's going to happen. Now you know what you're following through on. Now you know what you need to do, right? So for anybody who's like, I don't really know how to articulate, you know, how to follow through on the boundary, you haven't actually set a good boundary. The boundary needs more if and then. And maybe that will help somebody who might be struggling with this, because I had a really hard time with that in my own life for a long time.
What are some good healthy boundaries that people can start practicing with to gain their backbone?
Well, are we talking about personal or business or both?
Both. I mean, the personal.
How predominant is your audience here?
And, you know, and it's. I mean, we have a lot of people that are, you know, just passionate about dogs. We have a lot of business owners that watch this, and you know, I think that it's, as you do one thing, you do everything, like you're saying, and we need to take a second to work on ourselves and on our business, and we're too busy working in ourselves and in our business to stop and to really you know, to connect with your fulfillment and what makes you happy and why you're here. And I mean, so many times we look back at and time goes like this, you know, and the regrets that we have and all that stuff are something that we don't want to have when we're going to be on that deathbed. And how do we figure out why we're here? You know, all that stuff, and it takes those boundaries. It takes that time of reflection, of contemplation, of so many things.
Well, and I think too that when you have good boundaries, you have integrity with yourself. You know, your boundaries are how you say, I see you, I respect you, I have integrity in my number one responsibility, which is to me. You are responsible to yourself first. Nobody else can do that for you. Nobody else can see what you see, can hear what you hear, can fulfill on whatever it is that you're here to uniquely do. Nobody has your voice. And if you don't have integrity around that, if you don't have healthy boundaries and respect for your voice won't be heard. And that's what's really important about why these skills, this process thing is so integral to having a happy life, to having a successful life, the way we should be defining success, that there's balance. When things are out of balance, we get all kinds of feathers, bricks, and Mack trucks of discomfort and stress and dis-ease. So if you're having a lot of reactivity, if you're feeling a lot of, why am I the only one doing this? Nobody, sees this. Nobody does this as well as me, or I can't believe this is happening to me today. It's a boundaries issue, which is why I think the conversation of boundaries is first a language one. If you want good examples of how to set healthy boundaries, you've got to start with your language, and you've got to stop saying things like, I suck at boundaries, or nobody ever listens to me, or I tried, but he doesn't respect me, or I tried to tell her, but she won't listen. That is crap. It is a cop-out. It is not taking responsibility for your life, and it's shitty language. Changing your language first, watch how different that feels to shift into, I am actively working on being a better communicator and being taken seriously and seen as believable. I am actively working on communicating healthy boundaries with people I care about so I don't overextend myself and become resentful. It's a very different language to use, which automatically starts to lift the frustration, the blame, the disempowerment that comes with, why does everybody do this to me? When that stuff is happening, it's for you. When you can shift your language to, this is for me, this is happening for me, so that I can learn what I need to learn. Guys, we don't learn unless it hurts. It doesn't stick unless it hurts, right? It's like, it's supposed to hurt. It's supposed to hurt. I needed to hurt when I lost my cool and took my stress out on somebody recently. I needed to hurt in order for me to realize I never want to look like that crazy psycho woman ever again. Yeah. Like whatever that was that surfaced in me was a new level of work I needed to do and a new experience of ownership that I still have the ability to become overly stressed. And it sucked. It felt awful. I was humiliated. I was mortified, but it has to hurt. That's a beautiful thing about how we learn. And it's something we need to welcome. We need to own it and sit in that for a minute and go, yeah, that sucked. I never want to do it again. Thank you for the lesson, right?
Yes.
So changing our language, number one. And then number two, the boundaries to start with is that accountability with yourself around your language. I will use better language around taking responsibility for my life. And then boundaries around slowing down. Make decisions about where you're going to remove things from that pie we talked about that isn't,
that's not endless. Pop,
yeah, it's not endless.
Right.
There's not enough left. You've forked out all the bites and people can't even taste the flavor anymore. You spread it so thin. And so, number one is, what am I going to take out? I wanted to do a summit again this year. I do the interview series usually annually. And I wanted to do a summit this year, but then I also wanted to start working on my book. Can't do both. So something's got to go, right? So I pushed the summit out and said, I love this thing. It's important to me. It's important to my community, to my business, but I can't do it all. The pie is too thin. So boundary, right? Boundary of ownership, that there's only so much that I can do in my lifetime in 1 year. There's only so much energy in a day. There's only so much that I can put out before I risk getting sick or, being pissy and hangry.
I hate hangry. Well, and changing the language, I think also changes the language, the dialogue that you have with yourself, with the negative self-talk. A lot of people really, really come down on themselves. And I asked them, I posed them the question, if you had somebody that you knew that talked to you the way that you talk to yourself, would you be friends with them or would you want to associate with them? And the answer is always like, no way, you know, and that's why do you accept it from yourself? And so I think that that's an important aspect of changing your language too, is being conscious about how you talk to yourself, and know that, you know, this is a process. And just like we have the process coach here, that this is something that people can help you with. And you know, and I think that it's also important that even though we all have our own unique language and our own unique purpose, that we stop expecting us from people. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does to me. I totally know what you mean. And, you know, I think to that point as well, the language that we use around whether or not you would accept that from other people, that's a really good clue as to where you might work on your boundaries next, is your influences in your environment. They're a huge contributor to whether or not you end up in overwhelm and burnout. And healthy boundaries, you know, to start with, for people who are really novice in this department, have to be something that you pursue around the people you spend your time with and are influenced by, because some people will stick around with you in that self-deprecating mode, and they shouldn't. But some people will. That's the kicker. It's like, you know, most of my consulting calls, when I'm talking with someone about coming into a coaching program with me, and they're struggling, they're in a really crappy place, and they want, you know, they want support, they want change, they want to move forward. It's like, okay, well, let's identify, you know, where the biggest leaks are. What's the behavior that you're exhibiting, the language that you're using that's costing you the most, and then I'll ask them, and who lets you do that? Who reinforces that for you? Because you and I, we're behaviorists, right? With animals, we know that they're going to do what works. They're going to do what gets them the result that they want. They're going to stop doing the things that don't. Yeah. They're going to stop doing the behaviors that have an uncomfortable, aversive consequence, or that don't have that payout and attention. So it's really important to identify with people right away who lets you do that. There's somebody. There might be several, but there's at least one. Partner, you know, spouse, husband, wife. There might be a parent, mom, dad, best friend, colleague. It's working for someone to be in the shit with you in that way. And sooner you identify that and talk about it, like you said, and put a boundary up around it. Don't let me do that anymore. That's ugly, and I'm not willing to, you know, risk the cost of what it's costing me. Now you're going to start seeing a lot of change happen, regardless of how skilled or comfortable you are with boundaries. That one little thing right there is really powerful. It shakes things up, and you start to see what those people are made of. You start to see, do they want your best interest? Do they have your best interest at heart and want you to become your highest self? Or are they really attached to what you being a mess does for them, right? There's just a lot of insight to gain there. Mm-hmm.
What could it do for them? Make them feel like a rescuer?
Or just allow them to stay in their own stuff too, right?
Stay in their own stuff. Yeah, to wallow in that. You know, misery loves really. What? Misery loves what? Company, right?
Company. Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. It gives them permission. If they hold you accountable, they have to do work too. So it's really important to recognize is that those codependent and enabling relationships are sneaky, and they're everywhere. We're all at risk of that. Again, we come from broken. So
well, I think that's why the dogs are in the situation a lot of times that they are in, you know, because they are the ultimate love no matter what. And and it gives people that role that we were talking about that might allow them to distract from that work that they need to do.
Well, and how many people have said to you, I have dogs, or I work with dogs because I don't like people?
We talk about that every time I do
it's a common one where the dog becomes enabling in that way very easily, because it's an avoidance of having to do deeper work that you would in a healthy human relationship.
And I see it in so many rescues, man, that are just like this. It's an interesting thing, you know, and a lot of these rescues say, don't take them to Bow Wow Bill.
Good.
Good. I don't want to deal with them anyway, but that it just sucks that the dogs are the ones that pay for it. So we have a couple comments here. While I'm pretty young and been in business a long time, I know when someone is ungrateful innately at this point, almost instinctively. Yes, absolutely. I've had a bunch of different clients working in New York City, as it provides a ton of different characters. If someone doesn't respect my work, I know. The tricky part is some people will, I would assume that's will put us on a strong song and dance for you, and you have to see through it. There's such a difference when someone is truly appreciative of what you have done, while everyone expresses that differently. It's the same feeling. Yeah.
I think that's very true. Alex, I would also ask you about, like, if I were to really get into the nitty gritty with you from a business coaching standpoint, I would be curious about what you charge, because there is a key ingredient in your pricing component. Whether or not you have somebody investing at a higher level or not changes their ownership and their authenticity around whether or not they're actually happy, whether or not they're actually bought in and coachable. And so a lot of times what I've seen is what you're describing, where there's still these sort of sneaky little people coming in around the edges from time to time that seem a little bit, manipulative or, two-faced. They say the one thing in the beginning and then they turn out to not be the same in the end. A lot of times there is an attraction element that is going on there based on how you structured your business and the way your services and pricing are put together, because you're not getting enough buy-in literally from people who are serious, who are going to hold you to your highest, best work based on the price they pay, and who are going to hold themselves more accountable based on that level of investment. So that is completely shooting off the cuff here. Just, it may be utterly unrelated for you, and you can absolutely throw it out and say, Cam, you're crazy, and that's nothing to do with my business. But it's just food for thought, because I have seen it based on what you're sharing specifically, that's something to keep your eye on. And make sure that, you kind of take into consideration as you grow. You will notice that your price point shifts the quality of person that you attract, and their level of commitment to their investment changes. It really does. And that is just encouragement too, from somebody who's kind of been out here in front a little ways, and made those adjustments over time and had to move through attracting some of the wrong people in the beginning and so on and so forth.
I love my clients. I love them, and just like Larry was saying, Larry Crone had how he's left, some of the clients have left their dogs in his will, or he's named wills in case, I call them my God dogs.
Yeah, I have some of those too. It's pretty amazing honor, huh?
Yeah,
There's some that I want that I don't think I'm getting. So.
Totally. Be like, man, I really want your dog.
If I proactively ask you to write me into that will for this one, please? Because
that's funny.
So I put a lot into that dog, and it's rad, and I'd really like to see that. I don't want to wreck it.
Good breeders, man. Like what you were saying earlier. Like, I have a dog now that is an absolute joy, and I want to go and hug the breeder. I seriously do want to go hug the breeder. Like
promote them.
Yeah, and
promote them.
I'm gonna post them down in the comments down below. So I'll put
promote them. I mean, it's really important.
What you allow will continue from yourself, others, and dogs.
100%.
Sometimes we need to stop and take a 30,000-foot view and ask, what's serving me? And where's the pattern? And that's where people like Cameron can help you with the process coaching and be like, or I see the 30,000-foot view here. And then she's like, what about this little wooded area?
It's so funny that you use that example, because we talk about that here quite a bit, that oftentimes, our clients or, my boyfriend coaches athletes, they'll be going through the forest specifically in Europe, hovering over in a helicopter going, no, the road is right, take a right, you need to go right to get out. And they're like, but the tarmac is going this way. And you're hovering up here going, trust me, take a fucking right. But all they can see is this road here. They don't know that it's going to dead end or it's going to head south, and they're trying to go north. And perspective is magical. I had an amazing life-altering couple of years coaching with my first business coach, and she was absolutely a game changer for me, getting the perspective, getting the accountability, getting the truth talk in my life from somebody that I could draw down from, who was out in front, who'd been operating at a higher level and who'd worked through very similar things to me. She totally changed my life, and it was worth every enormous, penny that I invested in that education and support for myself. And, I'm always trying to help my clients in that understanding that I've been there. I've had to get that perspective. We all do. So do not, feel shame. Do not feel blame if you're struggling through some things right now. If you're in the grief process, if you're dealing with boundaries development, if you don't feel that you are running your business optimally, whatever the topics are that we covered a spectrum. That there's no use in shame or blame. It's useless. It doesn't serve a purpose other than to give you information about where you've come from, so you know how to not return to this place again. The real key is ownership, responsibility, and getting support, asking for help, and being honest when you're in that place, so that you feel the vulnerability of that ownership, and then people can come in and give you, they can give you the support. They can show you, oh God, I've been here. Watch this. This is all it takes. Like, let's go this way.
That's right.
And can just even relate with you, like you were saying, just talk with you and let you get it off your chest, so you're lighter and you can move forward again.
And acknowledge it. Acknowledge that,
yeah.
that sometimes it's an elephant in the room that's just like, hey, you guys, this, or and
Totally.
knowing that sometimes you borrow scars by learning from these teachers. You're not going to be running through the forest trying to jump over and banging yourself up. You're going to be going on the smooth route. And it's something that it changes your perspective. You see the world with different eyes. You hear your conversations with different ears. And but we're always learning, just like you we're not all perfect, and we all have these lessons, and we're always busting through to that next level of understanding. Like, oh crap, I don't know it all.
Yes, God, yes. It's hard living out loud too. I think there are a lot of people who are trying in this industry they're entrepreneurs. We're entrepreneurs in this industry when we're running our own brand and we're working from home. Most dog trainers who are providing, especially balance training, are working in the realm that we are. They have home-based businesses. They're in it, man. And, nothing like business to show you who you really are, because all your stuff follows you into that dynamic. It's like the hose, how you do one thing, right?
Yeah.
Is how you do everything,
including neurological baggage of boundaries, and not only that, but it's such it's such a raw thing to put yourself out there, and very vulnerable. And not everybody is an entrepreneur, and some people are entrepreneurs, and learn that, and there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, it's just who we are and what we prefer. If somebody wants to get your help, I mean, what does that look like? How do they get a hold of you?
Oh, they can shoot me an email. They can DM me. You can reach out to me directly right now. Like we said in the opening, I run my foundation, and I have a team that handles a lot of the physical dog training components and service of the community, what we do through that organization. I'm all the media and navigating all the client relations for that. Fire putter outer, yeah. So as it pertains to the coaching, it's best to probably just directly reach out to me, message me on Facebook, or email me, Cameron and it's Alpha B Evolutions, ALPHA letter B Evolutions.com. So we can give you the email. You can shoot me an email. Tell me your story. Tell me what's up. Tell me what you need. Where you're trying to go. What are you struggling with? I'm happy to talk with you and support you and see if there's a way in which I can ease that for you. I generally can. And I have a retreat that comes up in September this year that's women only. So if you're a woman, especially in this industry, or somebody who's been struggling with a difficult dog, I guarantee you, after all these years doing this work and as interconnected as my two fields are, there's a lot of process and success principles I can bring you around how to clear the overwhelm, to step out of that fear and, stress and not knowing what next step to take. I'm really strong in that area and really love working with people to get unstuck and feel empowered. So yeah, just feel free to reach out to me, and I appreciate being able to share that. So thank you, Bill.
You're very welcome. Cameron at Alpha B Revolutions.
Evolutions. Evolutions. We are evolving.
Do you know what? And that's very important. It's an evolution, because a revolution brings it back. right?
Yes.
Revolve, just like a revolving door, right? But when we
Yes.
evolve, we go, "Ping."
That's right. Language.
That's right. Language and changing
Alpha evolutions. Thank you so much for that, Stacy. I appreciate the note. It was so amazing to have you here last year. It's going to be a really decadent one this year. I'm excited.
Man, I wish I was a woman.
I know. I'm going to have to open it up.
I'm good. I'm glad I'm a dude. Not on camera, for sure. I had one client who actually paid me more because even though they weren't dog trainers, they didn't feel comfortable paying me whatever price I gave them. They knew I was worth more. Some of the greatest moments, for sure. They treat you like family. Not everyone will, but that's the perks of the job, for sure. Yep. I mean, I get bonuses at Christmas time that are so cruel. You know,
that's nice.
It's just so rad. You know,
that's nice. Alex, just keep up the great work, man. But also, you know, watch your language, because they treat you like family, and everyone should. If you have the right clients coming into you, your standard can be to expect that.
Yes.
And these are just amazing little tweaks, right? That we unconsciously don't realize the impact of when we have a narrative, a story going on, that some clients are amazing, some are a pain in the ass. You can have all amazing clients. You really can. You can also run into people who are amazing, but who are struggling, and therefore they can be a little bit more difficult to serve or deal with in the moment, but they can still be amazing, especially when, the dialogue, the dynamic, and the boundary that you have for yourself and your business is to only draw in and serve that caliber of client. And so just encouragement for you to constantly raise the bar. You deserve it, and it's possible. If you do the work, your clients will reflect it, for sure.
Well, find out where your clients found you too, the ones that you love, them,
And take really good care of those good ones, man. I think, from a business coaching standpoint, we often forget to nurture our existing clients as much as we need to, and to really care for those cheerleaders of our businesses or our organizations. I have some incredible people who support my organization. Dolores, I think, popped on here earlier. If she's not still, Dolores is phenomenal. Thank you, Sean. I really appreciate that. It's cool that you're able to jump in. And I never do enough to thank her. I could never possibly do enough to thank her, but I have all these dreams all the time of like, I want to do this or I want to do that for her. And just really important to, nurture those connections with the people who do represent the bar. And for anybody who maybe has forgotten that's actually where you get your greatest revenue growth from, believe it or not. And it's important to have those repeat customers that do align for sure.
And take care of them. I mean, love on them.
Yes.
Make them fall in love with you, fall in love with them. That's what it's all about. And just think about how you would feel like just an example. One of my clients was like, and I know boundaries and stuff, but they were like, hey man, we're going to be, our plane we thought was landing at 7:30 a.m., but it's landing at 7:30 p.m. Is it still cool to get my dogs? And I was like, come on out, you guys, because they were, I mean, you probably would be like, no. Would you? What did you do?
Yeah, no. I mean, for me, that's like 7:30 land, and then by the time you get your bag and you drive out to the property, it's going to be 9 o'clock or later.
Yeah.
And we're talking no.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. No. Yeah, tomorrow. I wouldn't necessarily charge them. Like that might be the give. Is I'm not going to charge you for the additional night. But you start to do things like that, and you risk that it's acceptable again the next time and the next time and the next time. And then you're going to feel frustrated if the next time, unbeknownst to them, you actually are busy or have plans, or you need to spend time with your wife, and you're interrupted by this, and it's actually on you. It's not on them because you taught them how to treat you.
Okay.
So, I mean, these are hard conversations to get into about business operations, because everybody has the right to run it how they want to. And I think what matters most is, as long as you understand the consequences, or you understand, are you fulfilling on your intention of what it is that you want to do for your client? I am a training company more than I am a boarding service.
Okay.
So I regularly remind my team that, and regularly return to that as far as how do we operate. And the same is true for the rescue work. I am a training company more than I am a rescue organization.
Okay.
So I do not do 24/7 crisis calls for rescue dogs, period. I do not take personal calls or text messages to my business to my cell phone. I don't do any of that on my personal phone. None of it. That's a big boundary for me that has saved my ass more ways than I can tell you in being able to operate at such a high level and cover so many hats and serve so many people in my coaching business. There's a lot of boundaries that have to be in place. But that's just for me. That's how I needed to function best, to serve my clients best, to make sure that I don't overextend myself and end up getting sick and things like that. And doesn't have to be the same for everyone, right? So as long as you guys are intentional, you know what you're trying to accomplish, you know what problem you're solving for your client and what you need to get that done. It's not that there is a one way to do it. It's just that you can't get upset if it circles back around and bites you in the butt and you have clients pushing back on your operating hours because you taught them it's worth asking.
Yes.
So just keep an eye on that. I mean, we all have this scale of like, that might be somebody that's really important to your business that you've served for ages and they never do this to you.
Yeah, that's
of
it. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yes, it's like, of course, come on out and get them. I don't want your dogs here tomorrow. I'm happy to get them out of my house. Like, you're going to make those executive calls as a business owner. People just that are younger in their industry experience need to know there's a shadow side, right? There's consequences in both directions. So it's not about right or wrong.
I would not do it for, no way. No way. Because they haven't been with me long enough, because they don't really know. And the other thing is one of their dogs is like got 3 paws in the grave right now. I'm like, and I had that conversation with them. I said, look, I need to talk to you guys about what happens if your dog passes away in my care. And it isn't a fun thing, I know. And they're like, oh, she won't. And I'm like, but I need to find out what happens if she does, or if she goes and if she starts crashing, you know, what you would like me to do. And so that was the other influence of like, get home.
Yes. Stay, I mean, I think context is really important for people to hear so that we don't perpetuate this narrative in, especially our industry, that hustle means you doormat service and you have no boundaries around, you know, taking that call and letting those clients show up in the night when you've already turned your brain off and you have made a plan and you're with your family time or whatever. But that there are exceptions to every rule sometimes. And that's the beautiful thing about owning your own company. You just do whatever the fuck you want. You get to break the rules.
I know the boss.
Just know the consequences, know the risks, know that there are going to be pros and cons, and make sure that if you're upset about the way something is going in how your clients are operating, that you self-reflect on, what am I teaching them is okay about this? Where do I need to tighten up the way that I operate and communicate? Because that's where your power is going to come from. So that's just the one thing I didn't want people to be like, oh, so now I should always be doing that because that's how Will gets Christmas bonuses.
And that's it. It's just taking care of them. And I know, look, if my dog was
that is a special circumstance. For sure.
Absolutely. And that's it. And this is the importance of what Cameron does and checking into, like, because sometimes it's hard to get that 30,000 foot view on ourselves. And when you have somebody kind of looking out and they already do this and they have the eyes to see it. And you know, so I highly encourage anybody that wants to live with excellence and to walk that life that they're meant to live, to get help and to find out what you might not know about life and about yourself and do the work.
Yeah, surround yourself with positive people who motivate you to want to be better. It's really the greatest way to advance yourself and succeed. It really is. It's powerful stuff for sure.
Hey, Fred. So and that's it. Well,
awesome.
Thank you so much for your time today, Cam.
Thanks for having me again. I'm so grateful. It was It's always wonderful to talk to you. And if your guy friends aren't calling you, then let's get on the phone.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Anytime, friends.
And I think that it's important. I want to talk about this with more men because, and I looked at suicide statistics, and it's scary with men that start to get up in the 50s and stuff. And it's a loneliness thing. And we just need to talk about it. We need to come together as men and know that there's nothing wrong with us to discuss this stuff, and in fact, it's going to make us stronger as
Yep.
individuals, as fathers, as brothers, as entrepreneurs, healthier as well. And so,
Leaders.
you know,
Yeah. Yep. 100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. I
oh,
definitely support that mission, and I have somebody in mind. In fact, not in our industry, but would be cool for you to connect with. So we'll talk about that off screen sometime.
okay. Well, let's say goodbye to everybody, and then I want to say goodbye to you off screen. So,
ciao. Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you, everybody, and
Yeah.
we'll see you on the next one.
Sounds good.